Right, welcome to another episode of Powerful Lives podcast. Today we've got Sean Willers. We've actually been trying to make this happen for about a year, so I'm glad to finally lock you in, mate. Yeah.
So am I, mate. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to this. Let's start at the beginning. Give us a background.
Okay, so from the beginning, I grew up in maybe a typical working class family in Macclesfield. 4 boys in the family. Dad left quite early, very low income. My mum had a problem with alcohol. She was an alcoholic, and I started drinking from a very early age. Maybe I say very early in the UK. You know, in most small towns, it's probably about the average. 13, 14. But for me, from a very early age, I had a problem with alcohol. I was not a good drunk, and I sort of was one of them kids at school that was intelligent but did not listen at all. I ended up leaving when I was 15. My mum kicked me out. I moved to a hostel. I got kicked out of the hostel. I was homeless at 15 for maybe 6 months. And then my granddad, who lived in Wolverhampton, picked me up. I remember the day. I was sleeping under some little underpass. It was pissing down with rain. It was my 16th birthday. My granddad called my nan, and he comes to pick me up. He said, "You're coming to Wolverhampton." And that for me was the opportunity to change, because if I'd stayed in Macclesfield from that early age, God knows where I'd be right now. And
what was that like, being 15 and sleeping rough?
You know what? I remember it very vividly, but the emotions I don't quite remember, if that makes sense.
Probably blocked it out.
Potentially, yeah, I think so. It was a dark time. It was a time where I was drinking a lot to cope with that, for sure.
Where was you getting the money from?
Yeah, well, when I was doing the work placement when I was 15, so usually with a work placement, you do like 3 days at the work placement, 2 days at school, but I didn't do any of the school days. So they were paying me a little bit for that, basically. But yeah, other than that, I was probably stealing it.
Yeah.
So it was, I probably didn't quite understand it, the emotion. I didn't understand maybe the impact it was going to have, or the, what the future held for me at the time. I just know it was a shit situation.
Yeah, that's the youngest I've heard. Like 15 and fending for yourself.
Yeah,
scary times.
It was. Yeah, it's. I mean, me and my mum, all my family are really close now. But my mum had me when she was 18. She was going through a lot herself. My dad, who again I'm close with now, he left and did his own thing and left my mum with 4 boys with no money. And I think because I was playing up so much, my mum had to think about the other 3 kids that she had as well at the same time.
Was you middle child?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest.
Yeah. So what an example I was setting there. So it was, it was a difficult time, but at the same time, it did shape me for how I act today in terms of like, I'm very capable and always want to do things, sort of on my own, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I had the opportunity to move to Wolverhampton, which I did. And I had like a time from like 16 to 18 where I was like completely lost. I didn't know who I was, what I was going to do. I had no qualifications. I'd been going through this traumatic time for the past 2 years of my life. And then I'm 16 in a city now as well, which was quite scary. Wolverhampton, it's not the nicest of cities. It's probably a little rough, to be fair. But my granddad gave me the opportunity, and what happened is I ended up finding fitness. So I went to it was a Thai boxing gym in Wolverhampton, and I absolutely loved it. And I sort of found a passion then, which was working out, was fitness. And at the time it was Thai boxing. I really took that up, and that's when I knew, okay, this is something that I could do. Fitness is something that I could start to train in, because at the time I tried a few things. Like my granddad sent me to college to do like an electrician's course and things like this, and it didn't really fit with me, but fitness did. So
give you that focus as well, especially, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why, I had so much like built up anger, and I was like so resentful of like my, especially my mom and my brothers at the time. Even though it was my fault, I was, always trying to blame them. So I think having fitness there, it was the first time I was able to like release myself a little bit without it being too emotional or too destructive, which is what happened when it was alcohol.
And even with the endorphins, so you wouldn't have thought about it back then, but the goodness that you're doing for your body just by working out, it's crazy.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when I was 18, I qualified as a personal trainer, and then that was sort of what I had my mind set on then. So that gave me, you know, a little bit of a purpose. It started to give me structure. You know, it was still difficult for me, and it was difficult for my nan and granddad. They're both passed now, but my granddad was like, he was the man that I looked up to, and it was still difficult for me because I wanted to make friends, I wanted to go out, I wanted to
socialize. Exactly,
but my nan and granddad, blessing us, they was like, you know, 8 years old and very old school with how they brought, you know, kids up at the end of the day, and it wasn't
different generation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a completely different generation, which again I didn't really understand at the time. But I did that for 2 years, and then I ended up joining the military, which from 15 years old, I think if you told any of my teachers at school, they would have been like, how on earth did that happen? But I was actually born in Colchester, so my dad was in the Paras.
Well, okay.
And I always remember when I was a kid, like when I was like 2 or 3, like, you know, trying on all his gear and stuff like that. So I think that must have just been in the back of my head. And because I'd taken this new love for fitness, the military really appealed to me. And I think also because I just had so many years with no structure and not really any family present at the time, I think that also appealed to me quite a lot. So I joined the military. I joined the RAF regiment, which is like infantry for the RAF. And then I did 4 years. So I did 4 years in the RAF regiment. I joined in 2010. I think it was 2008 and did Afghanistan 2010.
Straight in. Nice.
Yeah, basically, because that was another thing. Because I had my fitness qualification, like my PT, what I wanted to do is I wanted to go serve my country, do a tour of Afghanistan, and then come out and then go back into the fitness industry with obviously that qualification behind me.
Do you know what? I find it. Everyone I speak to who has ever sort of joined the military, it's normally always a family-based member. You know, like because for me, honestly, I couldn't think of anything worse.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably just our fight against being told what to do. But it sounds like, it was probably perfect for you, give you a bit of structure. And obviously you're getting paid to stay fit.
Absolutely. But it's funny you say that because I fucking hated anyone telling me what to do for, you know, up until 20 years old. So I still don't really understand why I made that decision and why I was so, you know, strung back. Because going back a little bit, I did apply when I was 18, but I had previous convictions from when I was a kid, because the part that I missed out is that at this time of like 15, 16, I was getting in a lot of trouble with the police as well. So I had to wait another year until I could go back into the military, but I ended up waiting for 2 years because like I was really enjoying the time as a personal trainer. But still, even though I'd waited and personal training was going well, I still really wanted to do it. So, I think it is maybe that childhood memory of when I was a kid always just attached to me a little bit, and I was like, I have to do this. But it was the best thing I ever did because it gave me structure, it gave me confidence in my abilities, it gave me the opportunity to work around other people who were giving it 100%, which I'd never been around before, you know. Which, you know, I'm sure you know, when you're around the right people and people who are also giving it everything, that does rub off on you. But on the opposite side of that, when you're around people who are doing nothing, it's very easy to fall into that trap as well.
Yeah, products of environment.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing is, though, from like now to this point where I'm like 24, there was still always every now and again something would happen with alcohol, like that was a bit like maybe I shouldn't be drinking, sort of thing. You know, it wasn't like I was drinking all the time, but there would always be a drama happen periodically every 6 months or something. You know,
was it only drink? Would you use at the same time as alcohol? Or?
Yeah, so I think cocaine started coming in around when I was 18, but it wasn't very heavy at the time. It was just like every now and again. What happened then is when I left the RAF, I went back into the fitness industry. I went back as a personal trainer. But me and my brother, my brother I've got 3 brothers, but Liam is the one below me. We'd grown really close. Like as soon as he turned 18, we just sort of had this strange bond, which we never had when we was kids, because obviously we never got along, and he always see me playing up all the time.
Yeah.
So
just how was that relationship when you become homeless? Did you see him for 6 months, or was it just literally cut off from the world?
Yeah, it was. It's quite hard to, to remember my relationship with me and my other brothers. Like my other 2 brothers below that were really, really young. But Liam, I don't really think we didn't really communicate.
Like, did you ever go back to the house?
Yes, I used to come back pissed out my head, and I'd be like banging on the door, 15 years old, like banging on the door, trying to get in. And it was, I mean, God knows what the neighbours were thinking, that's for sure. But at the time, I didn't realise that my mum was suffering with an alcohol, a problem as well. So I'm there trying to get him pissed out my head at 15, and my mum is saying no, but she's also, having her own problems at the same time. So, I did try quite a lot, basically.
Yeah, and again, but probably a negative. Like you say, your brother sees you trying to bang the door down. It's probably not a good look. Yeah,
arguing with my mum all the time, So that's why it was so strange that we connected almost instantly when he turned 18. So I was like 19, 20. And then when I was in the military, I think it was almost like my brother had respect for me then. He'd lost all that from when I was a kid, and then see me join the military. Yeah. Like he'd come to like my pass out parade, and then come like when we, to a parade when we got back from Afghanistan. And then he started to get into fitness a little bit as well. So when I left, I had the opportunity to move to Southend, which where he was living at the time. And I thought, Wolverhampton it served a purpose, but it wasn't somewhere that I wanted to call home, even though like me and my granddad were really close. I'd speak to him pretty much every day. I decided to move to Southend. So I got a job as a personal trainer. But at this time now, when I've come out, ego is very high. Just left the military, tour of Afghanistan. I thought I was the absolute bollocks. In Southend as well, which is like...
I know Southend well.
Yeah. So we, my brother had a group of mates there, and I sort of integrated myself into them. And when we used to just go out every weekend, typical go out, drinking, and then cocaine started coming in, and then fighting started coming in. So it'd just be like I'd work my PT job, which at the time I absolutely loved it. It was a great job. It was probably one of the best jobs that I'd had. And because I'd just come out of the military, out of the infantry, I was super like disciplined and just really motivated to do everything all the time. So I was like working, 12, 16 hours a day, and then going out at the weekend, getting absolutely wrecked and repeating that cycle. But he started to catch up on me a little bit. We started to get in trouble. There was a lot more fighting happening. And then
it's not the hardest place to have a fight in Southend either, is it?
No,
it's like
it goes hand in hand, That's the thing. So and obviously that was the thing with it, is that everyone we went out with was up for it as well. So it wasn't just like you were going out like trying to look for it. It was like, who wants it? Yeah. Basically every single weekend for quite a few months there as well. So, but then what happened is, so I got offered basically one of my clients at the time. He said, the Stobart is taking over the airport at Southend because they're expanding the runway and they're looking for firefighters. You should apply for the job. So I was like, great, why not give it a go? I'd been doing the PT. It'd been going well, but I thought, fireman, what a great job. So I applied and I got the job. I got the job as an aviation firefighter. So I thought, this is great. This is at a time when on Facebook you would change your status, to anything. So that was it. He's got military PT fireman. And I went up to Aberdeen and I did, I think it was 6 months we were there, putting out planes. It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible.
Pretty cool job, yeah.
It was, the thing is, the training's good. But an aviation fighter, when the
I
planes,
was going to say, yeah.
9 times out of
happens.
10, you end up just being a bird scarer. But anyway, went up, awesome training. There was 10 of us who got the job, a couple of ex-military as well. But there was me and this guy, Dave. So we'd spent all this time in Aberdeen. They'd spent thousands on the training, qualified as aviation firefighters. Last day, me and Dave go out and we get absolutely off our nuts. Yeah. But because I'd been at a time where I'd already taken quite a lot of cocaine, I almost needed that to level me out a little bit with my drinking.
Yeah.
But we didn't have any. And I just went off the rails. We ended up, I mean, I don't really remember what we did, but the hotel room was trashed when we woke up. And when we woke up, the manager pulled us over, me and Dave. He's like, you guys are in the shit. We've had like 5 complaints here. He said, when you come back, you got to go and sit down with the board, basically. I was like, fuck me. So I've been celebrating, thinking, right, I'm an aviation firefighter, fantastic new career, what a touch. And then I've gone back from Aberdeen to Southend on the Monday, had to sit in front of the board, and they've sacked me for gross misconduct. They said because Stobart had just taken over the airport, you're putting the company in disrepute because you just had like 3 or 4 complaints after qualifying as an aviation firefighter. So I remember I didn't have a car at the time. I took the bus back and I thought, fucking hell, what have I done here? But the problem was at this point, Brett, is that my heart really wasn't in the fitness industry anymore, but it was all I was qualified in. So I went back into the fitness industry and I fucking hated it. So this is where the weekends were, this is what I was living for now, the typical living for the weekend. And I do relate to why a lot of people do this, because if you hate your job in the week, going out, getting
Escapism.
on it, and especially in Southend, having a little fight or pulling a bird, what a great end to the weekend and repeating that. But it never ends good. So we started doing that. But then at the time, I started going out with a few guys who were into house music. Now that wasn't really me at the time. I've always been like a big hip hop fan, like from that was what my dad was into when I was a kid, and it's just always like followed through with me. But then we started going out to a couple of house raves, and I remember we went back to this after party, and a guy had decks there, just some CDJs, and me and Liam had a go, and we thought, this is all right, I could get into this. And I ended up just buying a set of I think it was like a little one that you plug into your...
Little cheap and nasty.
Yeah. And we set it up on an iron board in my living room, and that was it. Me and Liam were hooked. We started going up to Fabric on Liam started going on Friday nights, and then we started going up on Saturday nights. And I remember the first time I knew this is what I wanted to do is I see Marco Carolla. He played a set at Fabric, and it just blew my mind. And I was like, this is it.
You see he's entertaining everyone. It's
exactly. And I thought, you know what, this is what I want to do now. I want to be a DJ. What we started doing is just every single weekend, I'd work, Friday would come, that'd be it. Back to mine, loads of people round, loads of gear in, just setting the decks up. And then we upgraded to like a set of half decent CDJs, still set up on an ironing board. And that was it. We were just partying from like Friday to Sunday. And then we started recording some mixes, and I see this guy again. This is on Facebook where I used to just message anyone I see, who was a DJ. I'd message him and just like try and get something off him. But then we started recording mixes. I started sending it out, and I see this one guy, and he put DJ competition in London this like Wednesday, and I was like, oh great! I sent him my mix. He's like, yeah, you're in, basically. And I couldn't believe it, because the winner wins a set at Egg in King's Cross. So me and Liam, we went on, I think it was like a Wednesday night in Vauxhall. Excuse me. And we went, and about 20 of our mates come as well. And it was class, like we smashed it. And the next day, the guy, Lewis, he messaged, look, get you a gig at Egg on Friday. We were like, fucking hell. Like we'd played a couple of gigs at this point. But this is within a few months of starting, basically. So we were like, yeah, he said, what you got to do is you got to sell tickets. So you sell them for 15, you keep a £5. We was like, fucking yeah, fine. I'll play for, whatever. I'm not even bothered about the money side of it. So we went, and about 50 of our mates come. The promoter, he couldn't believe it. He couldn't, he just brought all these people and stuff, and it went really well. And he's like, look, lads, I want you to come back and play for New Year's Eve. I think this was November when we played. I want you to come back and play for New Year's Eve, and we did. So he was like, great. Same again. 50 of our mates come, but this time, two people after us didn't turn up, so we ended up playing a 3-hour set. And one of the guys, Hans' name is, who worked in the actual, he worked for Egg.
Yeah.
See us play, and Liam started talking to my brother, because my brother used to talk to everyone when he was out, and they really got along. And then we got picked up from the club. So then what we were doing is that we were just like obviously working at the weekend and going to London. Like on a Friday, and coming, we get that last train out from Liverpool Street, first one back in the morning, and then this would be like Friday into Saturday, then crack on at mine after. And then it got to the point after a couple of months where Hans said, look, if you want to make this work, you've got to go all in. You're going to have to move to London. And at the time, my boss, he was, I think he was like, thinking, you've got to make the choice, mate. You can't keep coming in on a Monday completely hungover when you're supposed to be a PT.
It's not the greatest look.
Not at all. So we did it. So that was it. Handed in my notice. Liam, I said to Liam, look, find somewhere. So he's like, I'll find somewhere. He's like, I found somewhere down Brick Lane. And we were like, great. So this was literally within a month. We were like gone.
Madness.
Yeah, and we had a massive after party at mine. My mate's dad was coming to pick us up in the van, and we completely forgot. Me and Liam were there with these two birds still off our head, and he's ringing us when he's outside, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Who's this?" He's like, "Oh, I'm here to move," and I was absolutely off my hand. Slept for 2 days, so I got to pack in a flat into this van. I remember sitting in the front seat with him. There was this girl here that we was with. And obviously my mate's dad, and my mate's dad must have been thinking, who is this?
Who is this geezer?
Like off my head in the front. Anyway, get to Brick Lane, and I had no idea what to expect. We had just completely winged it and just been like, yeah, this is it, we're doing it. We get there, and it's a fucking room share in a house with about 8 other people. So immediately we've got this van that's like got it's packed full of all the stuff from the flat, and we've got there, and it's just one tiny room. And I was like, Liam, what are we going to do? So we had to stack all the stuff up, throw a load of stuff away. But to be honest, at the time, I couldn't care less, because this is like, the opportunity that we had to do a career as a DJ that 6 months ago I never even thought about.
Never even tried it. Not
even interested in it, So we were like, look, we'll make it work. And then we started playing at Egg. Like, we got a residency on a Friday, and we were living just off Brick Lane. And we to be honest, we were never in the house. We were always out. We were always trying to network and go into other parties and just being a part of the scene.
Yeah.
And then Egg picked us up more. We started playing on the Saturday. We started doing like the radio there, and we started to get really involved. And then we started to become like the face of Egg. So all the artists, started to know us, and then we got picked up from a few international gigs. I think we got our first one was in like Czech Republic, and then we got one in Moscow. And then
that must make you feel pretty special as well. When you work abroad, it's like,
yeah, it was. It was. I think the thing is, Brett, is just it moved so fast, and all of a sudden, we were part of like this scene that had been there for years, like London, like Lawrence, the owner of Egg, he used to do trade at the Turnmills, which was like one of the biggest parties they had there, and also it was a world that I'd never really been involved in. Like, Egg comes from like a massive gay scene as well. Like, that's where Lawrence like come from. That's what trade was. So I was around all these like creatives and just really interesting people that I'd never been around before. From coming from like Macclesfield to then being in Southend fighting all the time. Suddenly I'm around all these creatives. Actually being accepted into that world as well, where literally a couple of years ago I was in Afghanistan. So things started to move quite quickly, but so did my drug use at this time. And this is the thing is that, like, the first 4 years in London were amazing, but I was using all the time. It had gone from just the weekends to then, you know, maybe a Wednesday, then maybe a Wednesday and a Thursday, and the weekend on top of that. And
it's available everywhere you're working. It goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
Exactly. And, you know, because me and Liam, because we'd started our DJing as partying, like, that's what we always recognised it with.
Was your brother using as well?
Yeah. So my brother was using, but, like, my brother he wasn't like me, where I'm a disaster when I drink, you know, and get on it. There's always drama, like, and there was periodically, again, through my career as an artist, like as a DJ, whereas Liam wasn't, but he was going through his own problems with, like, mental health and weight problems as well. He's, like, really overweight, and he had to fucking put up with me, bless him. But at the time, you know, it's the thing, Brett, I wasn't interested about anyone but myself. You know, that's, my ego is so big, and I was using gear all the time as well. All I was bothered about is just, you know, this career. That was it. Just being a DJ, being a part of it, and just getting on it.
Do you think, this is going to be a really mad question, but do you think the DJing would have gone as well if you weren't taking and abusing the gear?
Not at all.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's such a valid question, because probably not. I don't think I would have been interested in it.
And just the confidence and the, you know, like, just that.
And I think the thing is like, when we first started DJing and doing it in the living room, you know, at my place in Southend, the reason why we're doing it so long is not because I was loving that. It's because I would, you know, done an 8 for gear. So that's what I was on.
Wear yourself out.
Yeah, of course, you know. So, you know, not. And I'll get to this later, but that is when, you know, when it got to the end of the career, that's what I realised, is that it was actually the drugs that had carried me through, not the music and the scene. But anyway, there was a few things that happened. Like, we got a gig in Romania. I got kicked off the decks. You know, I kept on getting picked up at Egg, because I'd be, like, the last person there from, like, Friday through to, like, Sunday with my head on the bar. And Lawrence, the owner, we were working in the office, like, a couple of days a week as well, because we were getting involved in, like, the parties and the selection. But I wasn't turning up half the time. And my brother was always there to pick up the pieces. Like, we were lucky we was a duo, because if it was me on my own,
you'd be gone.
I wouldn't have made it, you know, I wouldn't have made it 6 months. So anyway, we started getting into, like, what we played was house, but it was a little bit more minimal or underground than what everyone else was playing in London. And that's what got us noticed as well at the time, that we were playing something different. And it was quite big in Berlin, that style of music. And we started speaking to some guys in Berlin that we really respected. Like, they were really up and coming. And we managed to get them to play at a party at Egg. And they come to Egg. Party was great. Come back to mine for the after party, because at this point we'd moved from Brick Lane to Old Street, so it was a bit closer to Egg. And do you remember the streets?
Yeah.
So you remember that first album with that building on? That's the building I lived in, Kestrel House. Yeah. We had some mega parties in there, mate. I was telling someone yesterday, actually, because I was saying about, he said he had to change his cleaner, and I said, when we lived in Old Street, I had my cleaner on a Monday. She used to come.
Oh, good.
So we had to change it to, like, a Wednesday, because sometimes we'd still be up in the apartment. Anyway, so we'd been at Egg now, and we'd done some great things. Like, we were playing some amazing artists, and I got a lot of respect for everyone that gave us the opportunity there. It was incredible. But I was starting to take the piss. You know, my drug use was starting to get too much. And this being said as well, Brett, is that I just left my fitness behind. Like, I didn't do fuck all. I used to sit on the bike for 20 minutes, maybe once a month, and think that was all right. So I'd gone from, you know, this transition in my life where I'd been reckless and homeless and, like, not knowing what to do as a kid, to going in the military and really finding fitness, to then being back into a world with no control. You know,
had you gained weight, or was it just unhealthy? Or
I had, like, the sort of skinny fat look, you know.
Yeah,
the pear look.
Puffy, yeah.
Yeah, with no muscles at all. really unfit. But to be honest, I wasn't.
Your body was probably in bits.
Yeah. You know, I was not sleeping, but I didn't even really notice at the time because it was just a cycle that I was in. Anyway, after this gig with the guys in Berlin, like we really hit it off, and they were like, "Look, we want you to come and play over in Berlin." So I went with one of my friends first, and I got back. I was like, "Liam, man, this is where we've got to be." Like, have you been to Berlin?
No, never.
I mean, for a creative, especially, you know, maybe what we're talking 8 years ago or something, maybe less than that. I think it was about 8 years ago, maybe 9. It was a really special place. You know, there was a lot of sense of freedom there. Everyone there was a creative. You know, everyone was doing something that was in the creative space. So when I went over there, I went to a couple of parties, and it was like nothing I'd been to before. And even like Egg,
you probably find as well if that music scene, you know, you're the only ones really playing this style here, but you go over there, you probably feel like you've come home.
Absolutely,
don't you?
Absolutely that. And I think as well that in London, like even, you know, in a club like Egg, it's still a bit rough. You know, I remember sometime there was someone there was a car chase. Someone had drove through one of the walls in Egg. You know, this is just like a normal Saturday night. Something always happened. Whereas in Berlin, you didn't really get that attitude there. You know, you felt a bit safer. So we got a gig over there. We went to play, and it was amazing. And then we got picked up from a club called Watergate in Berlin, which is like iconic. And they said, look, you know, same as what Hans said to us when we was living in Southend. He's like, look, if you want, move over here, we'll put you on the agency, we'll put you on the residency with the club. So we did. That was it. You know, within a month we were there. But at this point, it's, you know, my drug use was already high.
What about, I mean, Egg? Were Egg more than happy to sort of see the back of your body?
It already got to that point where, you know, we weren't on as many lineups. You know, we didn't really
trying
have.
To fizzle you out a little bit. Yeah.
I think when we said we were moving, they were like, "Great," because then we lost contact with them completely. I mean, that's just how the owner was. At the end of the day, he was just one of them individuals. I mean, look, I love him to bits, but yeah, I don't think that was.
Sometimes things just run their course.
Yeah, cool, that's it.
So.
Exactly that. And what we thought as well is that if we really wanted to make a name, because we were just known as the Willers Brothers from Egg, that was it, you know.
Yeah.
So this was an opportunity to make it in a scene that we absolutely loved, and we went over, and we got really close with a DJ called Symphy. She's smashing it. I mean, she was smashing it then, but now she's massive, and she gave us incredible opportunities.
What was her name?
Symphy. Yeah, she's she gave us an opportunity to work on a label. She gave us opportunity to go in a studio. She got us on the Watergate agency. We were playing at clubs like Tresor, Club Divisionaire, like all these iconic places in Berlin. We were getting in the guest list at Berghain, which is like renowned.
Are the clubs bigger over there? Has it got some big clubs?
Like Berghein's crazy, but it's more just they don't close. Like they open on a Friday and close on a Monday.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. So
Jesus Christ.
This is well, you can see where this is going. Yeah. One place that I could have moved in the world at that point was you know, probably not the best for my physical and mental health. Anyway, as is with drug use, is that it only ever gets worse. You know, and this is, I speak to so many people now with the new business that I have about this, but if your drug use is bad now, if you don't do anything about it in a year's time, it's not going to get any better. But I couldn't really see that at the time, and it did get worse, and I started taking a piss, and people started to pick up on that, and we started to lose contacts. Like we fell out with Symphy, got kicked off the Watergate agency, didn't have a studio, you know, gigs were like not coming in as much. We were always quite lucky that my brother had a really good personality where he could, you know, he
let him do the talking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we'd managed to get onto another agency which called PIV, which is based in Amsterdam. Guys are amazing. Again, they're absolutely smashing it now. Same thing happened. Got kicked off of there, you know, and I ended up.
Did you see it in yourself, though? Was you too sort of ego driven?
I think I was too ego driven. Yeah, I was too ego driven. I think absolutely I was definitely too ego driven. Like, I knew that it was a problem, but I don't think.
Did your brother never say like?
Yeah, of course, every weekend, like, what the fuck are you doing? But yeah, in one out here, in one ear, out the other, and I'd probably try and go AA or NA or something, and I'd go, but I wasn't really interested.
No,
and then
you're ticking the box, sort of
exactly,
thing, like,
just going.
Looks like you.
Like I'm doing something. Look, guys, I'm trying here, but then it's back on it. But the problem was as well, like, a huge trigger for me was being around the industry that I worked in. So, it's like it's not that I didn't have a choice, but it was difficult to make any change when, one, I wasn't really interested in making change, and two, the one problem that I'm having is the career that I'm in, because that's always instigating my partying. And plus, me and Liam are known for partying at this point. Like, when we were playing, it's party time sort of thing. So, but it did get quite bad. I was in a relationship at the time, which was, pretty toxic from me. And she managed to get me some therapy through the RF Benevolent Fund, which is like a charity for, for ex-military. And they got me, I don't know how many hours of therapy it was, like 50 hours or something. But again, didn't really click, wasn't really interested. Guy didn't really understand me. So couple of years in Berlin, first year incredible, living the dream, in and around some scene, and looking back now, it still was, we really did some stuff that I never thought was possible, and I felt so privileged to be a part of that. But gradually I was deteriorating, and I think just before COVID happened, I was like rock bottom. Like, I had sleep in the studio that we had, which was out in East Berlin, grey, grim, like one tiny room.
Prison cell style.
It just, wasn't nice, because every apartment I was getting kicked out of, because I was just a nightmare. And then I'd go to like a house share as well. Same thing, coming back, stealing people's alcohol, just being completely reckless. Never my fault, though. This was the thing, It was never my fault. And I'd never take responsibility for anything, neither. And I never really made much effort to change.
And it's mad, though, how once you're in that cycle, how blind you become.
Yeah.
Like, it's very easy. You just blame it on it. It's everyone else but me. Like,
absolutely. It's, and that's what it was. It was never my fault. I remember.
What's their problem?
That's what it was. Oh, he's an arsehole.
Yeah.
Why is he doing that? Or this, that, and the other. It was, never me thinking maybe I shouldn't be, partying in
abusing every single situation.
Exactly. When I mean, obviously in hindsight it's easy to look back now, but we were given so many opportunities from people who didn't need to give us opportunities, and I say we because I don't want to bring my brother into this. I took the piss. I fully took the piss out of people, and I regret that. But this is what drugs do. At the end of the day, this is what continuing to use drugs on a daily basis will do to you. It changes you. It turns you into a selfish fucking monster.
And that scene it's a drug fueled scene.
Of course, it is. It absolutely is. It's it's a lot darker than people understand. I think, because the problem is with it as well is because especially as an artist, as a DJ, everyone's got a massive ego. And everyone wants to look like they are the best and doing well. So no one really wants to talk about having a problem, or if you've got a problem.
Weakness.
Yeah, of course. You're not going to put that on your social media. Oh, I'm doing cocaine all the time. I need some help. You just make it look like everything's good. So no one even knows. This is the problem. But it got to the point where it was like, okay, I'm fucked here at the end of the day. So,
but did it take you to lose pretty much everything?
Yeah. So. Again, just before the lockdowns happened, I was sleeping on my brother's sofa because he managed to maintain an apartment, for a couple of years. Like he was, he was.
Had you two then? You kind of parted ways to a degree.
So we just weren't getting along. Like we couldn't create music because every time we go in the studio, I was using cocaine, and I would go there to make music and think that cocaine was helping me. But I'd end up just singing Oasis on my own, after a 3-day bender, not making any music. And my brother obviously could clearly see that. But again, he couldn't tell me anything because then I would be on the defensive. You know, if he said anything, I'd be like, you can fuck off. It's, you know, we've got to do this, we've got to do that.
Just say whatever.
Yeah, whatever, yeah.
Get my racist joke there.
There we go. I like that.
That's all I got.
Yeah, more than I've got. So, but anyway,
and I take it you're paying for studio time.
Yeah, well, we had a studio, but the thing is, it's super cheap. You know, it was not much, and we were living gig to gig at this point. No savings, no money at all. I was just
hands and mouth.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah,
and the thing is, our gigs were getting less, and the pay was getting less as well, because we were just getting like local gigs. You know, a couple of €100 here and there.
You splitting that as well?
Yeah, so it was like he'd gone from, you know, something special. I mean, the thing is, we were never bothered about the money. That was one thing with the DJing. I never thought,
passion project.
It really was, but then it was a drugs project.
Yeah.
You know, by
and you need money to buy drugs.
Exactly, and I picked the most expensive one. You know, should have chosen Speed. Would have been all right. But you know, it's just, you know, it's disgusting when you think about how much money that I wasted on it,
and opportunity and
time.
Yeah.
And anyway, me and Liam started falling apart. You know, he'd really had enough of it, and he was then had enough of the scene as well. I think he'd sort of done with it.
Must be exhausting.
Yeah,
must be exhausting. Yeah, like, it's 24/7. Right.
And the thing is, there's a lot of pressure because you've got to be creative. But when you're in such a dark place, it's hard to be creative. And that's why I was using a lot of drugs, because I thought that would help me get out of this dark place that I'm at, and it would help me be more creative. And I'd have like an hour where I'd make some music, but then it's, you know, just a complete binge.
Yeah.
And then wake up in, you know, laying on the sofa in the studio, just thinking, what am I doing? You know, I remember just used to ring my mum, cry my eyes out. And obviously she can't do anything. And, you know, I think she knew what was going on because, you know, Liam...
I'm sure he must have been feeding back.
Of course
to her,
he would have, you know. Yeah, of course, you know. And I think they could just tell anyway. And so, anyway, lockdowns happened, which it ended up being the best thing because we had no money and no savings, all our gigs stopped like that. And I had to get a job because we were stranded in Berlin. Like, we didn't, you know, my family haven't got money. We just flew back. A lot of people, you know, had that opportunity. We were sort of stuck out there. So I was like stranded in Berlin, staying in my brother's apartment with him. I mean, he's shit out of luck there, really. But at this point, Liam's smoking a lot of weed, so he weren't doing anything. And I got a job. It was at Amazon. It was the only non-German speaking job I could get, doing the night shift, you know, with the boxes.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was thinking, is this it? Like, I've gone from a DJ,
superstar DJ,
yeah, to a deadbeat, to now a deadbeat with a cocaine addiction working at Amazon in Germany,
sleeping on my brother's sofa.
Yeah. So, and bearing in mind, you know, how old is he? I was, you know, I'm in my 30s at this point. So everyone else I know is, you know, grown up. They've got, you know, decent jobs, careers, houses, wives, kids. I don't have anything. Anyway, I did this job and it was good because it broke that cycle. But what it also did is it got me moving my body again. And that movement in my body, something sparked again about fitness, which I hadn't done for this point for about 8 years. And
your body must have been in bits.
I was overweight, but I used to get the worst acid reflux. Like, that was the worst thing I think about it, because my stomach was, obviously my gut health was so bad because of all the alcohol. And anyway, I started working at Amazon. I met this guy, and he was, you know, I think he was like 45. He was in great shape, and I was just asking him, like, how'd you get in that good shape? And he said intermittent fasting. I'd never heard about fasting before. I was like, what's that? And he told me, you know, you don't eat for 16 hours and you eat for 8. I was like, fuck it, I'll give it a go. So he told me about this app called Fastic, it's called, and it's just literally a start and stop one. So I downloaded it, January 2021 this is. And I don't know, it was just like I felt in control again. It's so mad. But just by me telling myself, like when I'm going to be eating and when I'm not going to be eating. Something, again, that with the movement at Amazon and just breaking that cycle of not getting on it every day.
Routine all of a sudden.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, that's what I've been missing. And I just went all in. Like I was, fasting. I was trying to push myself with the fasting. I remember opening up MyFitnessPal again. And it'd been like 10 years.
I'm back.
yeah. And I started tracking my calories again. And then at the time, I didn't have any money, so I couldn't join a gym. And obviously it was, gyms are restricted. So there was a lot of, in Berlin, they have like a lot of them parks with, like
all the outdoor training stuff. Yeah.
So started going to them. And at the time, I'm still using gear. I'm still using maybe a couple of times a week, but not as much, basically. Probably on my days off, I'd go out and whatever. Or it wasn't even that, I'd just go to the studio. Because in my head, I still, when I'm in Amazon, I'm still telling everyone I'm a DJ.
Yeah.
It's still what I want.
This is just a gap filler.
Stopgap.
Yeah.
And they're all like, yeah, of course you are, mate. But anyway, so this point now I'm at Amazon, things have started to change, started to lose a little bit of weight, started to feel a little bit more in control. And then me and Liam decided that we had to get out of Berlin. We'd done, 4 years in the city, and, it'd been a great start, but there was nothing there for us anymore. And then things started opening up again. So I'd again, I wasn't sober, I wasn't clean, but I'd started to, move my body a bit more. I was fasting. I was loving that. I was tracking my calories. I was moving, like I said. And then we got taken on by a new agency, one that I'd looked up to for a long time. And they were like, look, guys, you're going to move back to England. We'll take you on. Like, we got a lot of projects that we can get you involved in. And they started doing a lot of work for us because we still had a semi-decent name. And I think the break period give us the opportunity to sort of rebuild that. So we went on with David and they had like 10 shows lined up in the UK, tour of Australia with Sash, 4 dates in New Zealand. Like, it was kicking off. We were like, look, we're going to come back in July 2021 and we're going to make it happen. Liam was like, I'm not interested. He's like,
really?
And I remember we moved back. We ended up moving to Southampton because I didn't want to move back to London because I knew it was too dangerous for me at that time. Like, I'm still, I'm not sober, but
fall straight back into
that cycle. And one of my old military friends, he lived in Southampton, and I had another friend who lived in Berlin who lived in Southampton. And Liam managed to get a job that was in Southampton. So we were like, look, let's just go to Southampton. I'd never even been there before. But we got an apartment. And the problem is we were trying to get an apartment there, but he's like, well, have you got any proof of where you've lived for like 8 years? I was like, I've got nothing. But because I was at Amazon, I was managing to save money now. So we ended up, paying for this apartment for like 6 months and moved back. Anyway, we went to Bournemouth for the day because we ain't been back to England for years. And I remember David, my agent at the time, ringing me. He's like, look, Australia's on. I was like buzzing. I turned around to Liam. He's like, I told you, Sean, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm out. And I was like, what the fuck? We had a massive argument. Again, eat my ego straight away. It's like, you've got to do this. Like, this is what we need to do. Just thinking about myself. So I rang him back. I was like, look, Liam's out. I don't think he's going to do it. He's like, fine. We'll bill it as the Willis Brothers. We'll think about, what we're going to do in the future. So I was like buzzing. So had my first gig. This was before the Australia. It was in Nottingham. Liam wasn't obviously doing it, so I went up on my own. I said, look, don't worry about me. I'm not going to drink anymore. Like, that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to, party a little bit when I want, but the gigs I'm going to do sober. I'm going to do it as a job. So I went up, not drinking all night. Comes to playing my set. I was like, I'll have one drink. So something clicked. I just went into absolute like psycho mode, basically. I don't remember what happened, but I woke up in hospital. I had a big gash on my head here, black eye, bandages on, blood all over me, like loads of cocaine in my system. Apparently I was found on the floor. Police had to bring me in. And I was being well aggressive with everyone. Like, when I woke up.
Madness.
I was like, what the fuck, man? I just broke down. I rang my dad, and I just had an absolute breakdown. Like in the hospital, I was like on the floor. I was like bawling my eyes out, and I knew at that moment that music just wasn't serving me anymore. Like I couldn't do it sober because, you know, like we were saying before, I didn't really enjoy the music.
No, it was more the same.
It's just the drugs and the partying, you know. Because if I did enjoy the music, then I could just play the gig sober, and it wouldn't have been an issue. But I couldn't. I tried it, and you know, I nearly died. So,
do you think that was the first moment you realised you actually had a problem?
I don't know. I think there's, you know, I think it was just before the lockdowns. That's when, you know, this is when I was at rock bottom. But the problem is at that point I couldn't see a way out. Like now I'm back in England. I've got a bit of security. I've got somewhere to live.
Yeah.
You know, I've started my journey a little bit. I could see a way out. Whereas when I was in Berlin, I couldn't see anything else but a career in music. Like that is all I could see. And, you know,
no second option.
Second option at all. Yeah. Anyway, so I quit. I rang my agent next day. Obviously, he was fuming because
just promoted a big Australian tour.
And they just spent a lot of time as well and hard work, but
got to do what's right for you sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. So I put it out. We had a little social media following to put it out. We got a lot of nice support about it, and at this time, like I didn't know, you know, what to do because I was like what career? You know, my fitness is the only career, you know, that I've done prior to that, but I was not in a position to start PTing people, for sure. So I knew I had a lot of work to do. And that's what I started focusing on, you know, just improving my mental and physical health again. And I was looking through the, you know, jobs, and one come up, PE teacher. So I thought, fuck it, let's just see. I'm not qualified, but I rang it. And I thought, maybe that'd be quite an interesting job. So I rang the guy, and he's only ex-military. And anyone who's ex-military, you always have this little bond, basically. So we had a great conversation. I told him my story. He's like, look, Sean, you're not qualified, but why don't you come down and try a lesson? If you like it, we can train you up. So bearing in mind, I've just moved from Berlin, and now, my plan was to continue my career as a DJ. And I remember I'm stood in the, when was this, like August 2021, and I'm doing a lesson for like year 2. All these little kids, man. And I spent hours doing this lesson, like I really wanted to do. And they fucking loved it, and it was mint. And I remember I'd been practicing handstands, and I did this handstand, all the kids clapped, and I went down the line. I was like, and a guy looked at me, he's like, you've got the job. I was like buzzing. And, so then I took this job. I told you it might have been a longer episode. It's fucking... But anyway, so I took this job as a PE teacher. And it was, the first few months was fucking great. You know what I mean? I'd been sucked into a world of just doing everything for me and ego, and now I've got an opportunity to like
give back
a little bit. But what I didn't realise is, fuck me, kids, they ain't too well behaved, yeah, right? And I remember first thing I did was rang my mum and I said, I want an apology. Do you think I was bad when I was a kid? He said, you seen him now? Bless him.
We was talking about this a couple of hours ago. Like, there's no. They've kind of lost control. You're not really allowed to parent your kids in your own house. No, you go to school, and again, there's no authority.
Yeah.
So they are, the kids now, and that age, they're still young.
Yeah.
Christ, you I don't know whether you sort of went up and got down the older kids, but
primary school, like
Jesus, like you wouldn't. Honestly, I can't understand why anyone would want to become a teacher. To sort of 12, 13-year-old kids.
Just insane. The thing is about, I thought, I'm going to come into that school, ex-military, DJ. Yeah.
You're gonna be so like cool. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Maybe to the teachers.
Handstands.
Yeah. Maybe to the teachers I was. To the kids, they couldn't give a shit.
No, they're like, who's this prick?
Innit? So anyway, but it was good. To start, it was something new. But at the time, I started documenting my journey through recovery on what was my old Willis Brothers page. And so many people in the industry started reaching out to me. Because me and Liam are known for partying, and they'd seen that shift that I'd made. People were like, look, how are you doing this? Like, you of all people, like, I need to know. So at the time, I didn't really know about the online space. You know, I'd come from working on the shop floor as a PT. But the more I started looking into it, I see that there was, you know, this new thing, online coaching. Obviously, I don't think it's new, but it was relatively, you know, a newer space for PTs. So I started coaching a few people, just giving them advice to start. And then one of my friends who I knew, Kai, he reached out to me because I knew him from the party scene. He'd booked us a couple of times, and we were going to play one of his new parties before it all closed down. He's like, look, I want you to help me out, and I'm going to help, you know, get your name out there a little bit. So I was like, all right. So I created like this 12-week program. We call it the Take Back Control program. At the time, I just wanted to help him lose a bit of weight and stop getting on it. And he smashed it, and he lost all this weight, got sober, and he put it out on his social media, and he had a really, you know, strong influence on social media as well. And I just had loads of people start reaching out, and it got to I think it was like the start of 2022, the start of the year, August, the school year, and I was sort of just thinking, because I'd done 1 year at the school, and I was thinking, do I carry on or do I just give the coaching a go? So I ended up leaving, giving the coaching a go, which is now Willis Fitness, and that's just gone, you know, like that.
Mental,
now.
yeah.
So
I mean, the thing is, all the problems are what's made you now. You know, you've got that life experience, and I love. I was reading about it this morning again, like the sort of taking back control. Like I like that angle, you know, because it does make you think. You know, I was reading it, I was thinking, I like that. You know, so because it makes sense. Yeah, it is and there's so many people with problems. You know, whether it's alcohol, whether it's food, drink. You know, it's drugs. It's like so many people don't realise how bad they are.
Absolutely.
You know,
and that's and that's where I was at a point where I didn't realise how bad I was, but. What happened is when I first started the business, it was just helping DJs. We worked with, you know, massive DJs, some Radio 1 DJs, some big names. But I started getting a lot more people reaching out to me, and we realised that, you know, there's more than DJs who are sort of stuck in this cycle. And then what it started to become was a platform for people who'd maybe tried everything else, therapy, CANA, like I had, but just still not being able to take back control of their lives. So we sort of branched out, and we started helping a lot more high performers, because like DJing is in that high performing niche, but then so still we've got, you know, business owners on there or guys working on the city who might not have the time to build this program out. Yeah, exactly. So we did. Like, I did the first year; it went really well, and then the start of last year, managed to bring my brother on full time. But at the same time, I'd gone through my own like transformation, where I took on running. I did like a sub 130 half. I did like a body transformation. But most importantly, is I stopped taking drugs and drinking. And since I stopped drinking, like, that's just everything changed. You know, everything changed. My life got so much better. My relationship with my family has got better. You know, I'm married now. Like, I'm settled, and I feel like I have purpose, which I don't think I ever had in my whole life. And I think that the one thing that was always pulling me back from when I was 14 all the way through to 33 was drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. And I think, listen, everyone's different. Some people have levels. My brother, who you met just now, he has a drink. He's a nightmare. Yeah. You know, like whereas I can go out and have a few beers and go home and I'm fine. I've never touched drugs.
Good.
I've actually always been quite. I think I grew up where everyone done drugs, and I just to be different. I didn't want to do drugs.
Good on you.
Leah Betts had just died.
Okay.
Scared me.
Yeah.
It was one of them things I thought I couldn't take a pill and drop dead.
Yeah.
So it was enough. You know, like my mum sort of drove it into me that, you know, sort of smoking was bad.
Yeah.
drugs were bad.
Yeah.
She didn't mention drink, to be fair,
Yeah.
because I think she enjoyed a brandy herself. But it was like, I'd sort of grown up, never smoked, never taken drugs.
Yeah.
But so many people do. But I mean, I think everyday addictions, I think I've got a food addiction. I struggle to eat healthy. I cycle like a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
You're stressed.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm probably your prime candidate for your thing. You know,
We'll have
like,
a conversation after this.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like you do. You know, you're working 16, 17, 18-hour days.
Yeah.
You end up escaping. You do. You know, you go out. Sometimes you think, oh fuck it.
Yeah.
Hit the fuck it button.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna get pissed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I'm gonna forget
Yeah.
the stress I'm
Yeah.
under just for 3 or 4 hours.
The thing is, drugs are bad. And this is why they're illegal. And this is one thing that I was so against for so many years. Like, no, they're not that bad. They're not. They fucking are. Like, cocaine is an awful drug and no one should ever take it. Not even in little bits. It's just not worth it. And I think the thing is that what I'm really trying to promote now is like not looking at sobriety as losing something, but looking at it as gaining something. Even if you don't have a problem, just go 90 days without drinking anything and see how much better you feel. And like for me now, I'm not staying sober now because I had a problem, you know, for all that time. The reason why I don't want to drink and do drugs again is because I don't want to miss the opportunity of becoming the best version of myself every day.
Yeah.
And that's what it's now giving me. But just on that as well, with every other day addictions, it can happen. And it's like you go through this cycle of just being out of control and doing the fuck it button and starting again. But every time you do that, you sort of put yourself back a little bit more, you know.
100%, yeah, 100%. I think it's really interesting to watch your metrics. You know, if you've got a Fitbit,
absolutely,
and you watch it and you watch everything's you know where it should be.
Yeah.
And then Friday comes and you go and have too many beers.
Yeah.
Bosh, that's it. Everything's out of scale.
Absolutely.
Where, you know, like, and I do look at it sometimes. I think this is horrendous. You know,
Yeah.
like.
So, I mean, make sure if you're doing your metrics, make sure you got the right shoes for your steps. Yeah. Look, what I always say is that the most important thing is to not overcomplicate and build a foundation. I think this is where, like, for example, for myself, when I was completely out of control, I was looking for too many external, external things to help me pull back in.
Yeah, when actually it's really simple.
It's really simple. Just what we do, like what my mantra is personally for me is fasting, whole foods, movement. I just make sure that I fast a minimum of 12 hours. So just a minimum. So that's say 8 at night till 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
But I make sure I track that on an app because then that holds me accountable to that. And that takes 1 second. I don't even need to eat, I don't need to add anything or take anything away. But the most important thing with that is that's building a habit. Now, a lot of people struggle with that, but then they'll spend an hour on Instagram all day.
Oh, yeah, so they've got no time.
Yeah. So next thing is just focusing on movement. It doesn't have to be a workout every day. Now, I like to work out every day because that's just how I've built my routine now. But sometimes if that's not possible, just making sure that you're moving your body and not being completely stationary. And then next, what's your nutrition like? Is it predominantly whole foods or is it a lot of junk? Because if it's a lot of junk, just focus on the quality rather than the quantity of the food. By building them, what I found is that just gave me control, it gave me energy, and it made me feel a little better because I was eating better as well, and obviously over time that compounds. I think sometimes when we're trying to gain back control, we're trying to change too many metrics or look for too much. And like for yourself, if you're working 16-hour days, it's not always possible, So just scale it back.
Sometimes it's almost impossible.
Exactly.
Honestly. Yeah.
But what I just said there, that's possible even if you're doing the longest day ever,
Yeah.
because you can factor in all them 3 things. And just by doing them continually, your weight will come down, your gut health will improve, your sleep will improve, your heart rate will go down, your HRV will go up, all these things. But you have to you have to build the habits, you have to build the discipline.
And small changes sometimes go a long way, don't they? Like,
100%.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Listen, I've always cycled, I've always sort of been, say yo-yo diet, but I've always sort of struggled with my weight as far as I will go up and down. I'll lose 2 stone. I'll gradually put it back on. I'll lose 2 stone. Gradually put it back on. And it's hard sometimes, like you say, because you're trying to make such big impact rather than actually, if you just said, right, I'm just going to cut that out, I'm still going to live my life.
Exactly.
Do that, and it will just come up, which is now where I'm at now. I'm just trying to, as we had the chat before, you know,
absolutely.
trying to do it sort of steadily rather than trying to get, right, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm going away in 6 weeks, I need to lose 2 stone.
I think that the thing is as well is that it's difficult when you're busy because there's no one there to hold you accountable neither, you know, which is, you know, I think that makes it even more difficult.
And stress is horrendous.
Absolutely.
Stress is, you know, like, I lay there at night, and I often work from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to sleep.
I noticed that,
you know,
even on your on your socials.
Yeah.
That's why it's taken so long to get this in, isn't it? You're working all the time.
Yeah, and like, people don't realise how busy you are, you know. But it's like it's life consuming.
Absolutely.
But you've got to try and, you know, again, I won't have a life. I'll be dead. You know, it's one of them. I want an extra 10 years of my life. I need to change now to
absolutely
to make that happen.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I've taken from my own journey is like, no matter how bad it is or where you're at in your life, you can make change. Because I remember, you know, sleeping on my brother's sofa thinking, I'm never going to be able to get back to where I was when I was younger. But now I'm in better shape. I'm fitter. I'm more in control. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've got my life together in a space of a few years, which is possible for everyone because, you know, there's nothing special about what I've done here at the end of the day. It's just consistency and just building that discipline and continuing to do the work.
Yeah. What's the future for you?
So the future at the moment is to just really build out Willer's Fitness. You know, it's been such an incredible project for me, and it's now turned into, you know, business and supporting me and my family and helping like hundreds of people over the world now as well. And I think that's, someone said this to me the other day, it's almost helped my recovery, that is seeing other people, you know,
helping's helping, isn't it?
Yeah, he's making that change. So now what we're really trying to do is just keep pushing that word out of that change is possible. You know, anyone can take back control of their lives, and also just pushing the word out more about sobriety and the fact that you're not losing, but you're gaining so much. We're also now got 2 more projects. One is called Power Her Full, and that's for women only. And that's run by 2 women that have been through my program and worked with me for 2 years and had just the most incredible results. And what we're trying to do is help mothers who are single parents, who are extremely busy, gain back control, you know, get in great shape, leave the alcohol behind and become the best versions of themselves. And then lastly, we've got another project called Resynced, which is going back to my original core, which is working with people in the music industry. But what we're trying to do with this project is help the younger generation have balance. Not talking about never partying and not enjoying the music industry, but making sure that they don't go too far one way or the other, because otherwise you'll end up like myself, who had to step away from, you know, from a career that we could have went, you know, so much higher if we'd had that balance in place.
Obviously, we spoke earlier about our mutual friend Ross.
Ross
Mack. Where are you, son?
Yeah.
How he's done it, honestly, his journey, and I'm sure he won't mind me talking about it, but like, I was with him pretty much just before he realised that he had a problem. He was bad. You know, and to see him now, what he's, not just the person he's become, you know, it's like what you're saying, he's married, he's got twins, he's got a nice house, he's got a business, you know, all the stuff. He didn't have it. He didn't have any of that. And I'll take my hat off to Ross. He's, you know, he's always inspired me in more ways than one, but just to, he's not only has he overcome it, he's obviously still doing the DJing, you know, like, and I think a lot of people have to come away from the environment purely because that is the link to drink and drugs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Ross he's a great example of that. That you don't, like, for me, like we talked about, the reason why I really stepped away from it is because I didn't really enjoy the scene. It was just the drugs. But there is a lot of people who still enjoy the scene, but you do have to come away and do the work. Like, that's the thing. You can't just do a week and then go back straight into it. You've got to do the work to make sure you've got that foundation to be able to move forward. And you're in control. You know, that's also the most important thing. But I've seen and worked with loads of DJs now who have come not away, but they've done the work and now able to, tour the world and still look.
It's mad how many have suffered and are now in sobriety.
Yeah,
but it's not at the same time. It's not mad because it is a drink and drugs environment. Like it's
but I think that's why it's so important for education now for younger people coming in the industry, because like I've explained with this story, my career went from like nothing to a career in the space of a few months, and that is possible, especially now with things like TikTok, where you get a song that blows up, you can get taken on straight away, and before you know it, you're playing in front of thousands of people. You need to make sure that you've got that balance, you've got that control, that you are looking after the most important thing that we all have, which is our health, which we all just take for granted, But without that, you've got literally nothing. And I think if you want to be in a career in music, whether that's an agent, manager, DJ, I think getting a hold of your health and fitness at the start of your career is so, so important, because in 10 years down the line, you don't want to have to be, dealing with the consequences of that.
I read something a month or so ago where it said you've got 1,000 problems, but in ill health, you've only got one.
Yeah.
It's like...
It's so true.
Yeah, I read it. I was like, it's really about 3 times. I thought it's brilliant.
It's absolutely spot on, but we do just take it for granted,
Massively, But how many people do you see? I mean, I'm obviously a bit older than you. The amount of people now I'm seeing who are having heart attacks, and then they're changing. And I'm saying this, I might have one tomorrow. I might have one in a minute. But it's like, you see it all the time where they have a heart attack, and then that's the little shake up and wake up, and then they make the changes. It happens. Like real life is consuming.
It is consuming, and I've been at that rock bottom moment, and this is why I'm so passionate about talking about the impact of everything that I've gone through, to make sure that you don't have to get to that. If you can relate to any part of my journey, whether it's just the start of it, take action now. Like, make a
100%.
change now, because you don't want to end up at rock bottom, because
too late.
It's not a nice place. And after that, there's no coming back from it. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Like for me, that night could have, that could have been the end of me. And then what good is that at the end of the day? So, yeah.
Yeah, scary. Who inspires you in your industry?
Oh, that is a great question. To be honest, I take a lot of inspiration from my brother. I think that me and him now have never been closer. I think I took his journey for granted for so long, but he's overcome so much more than me, because he's had his own demons with drugs, with weight problems. At one point, he was like 150 kg. He went down to 80. He ran a marathon last year. He's running Manchester Marathon on Sunday. He couldn't even run. Like, for me, I had that fitness background. I had the military. Liam didn't have anything. He's literally built all that up in the space of a few years, and seeing him continually push the boundaries and do things that a few years ago I didn't think was possible for him is incredible. But he's had to do that whilst putting up with all my shit as well. And I fucking love that guy, and that's, being able to work with him and see his change every day just inspires me to make sure that I'm pushing to become the best version of myself, so I can help more people as well. Nice.
And you got your own podcast now.
I have, yeah. Sean Muller's podcast. Well? Yeah, it's going really well. Yeah. I ran one last year called The Afters Cast, which we did 20 episodes of, and that was all DJs. Jackie's gone off now and done Bear Chat, and I sort of wasn't sure, if I was going to go back into it, but I have got the Sean Muller's podcast. What we're doing there is we're talking with a lot of people that I've had connection with in my journey, and talking about their journey. That's really what I'm trying to get, people who've had to overcome something and turn their life around.
Yeah, it's inspiring. Listen, our ethos is sort of sharing that story and it's got a happy ending,
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why I love this podcast, because it's exactly the same, hearing people come on and, because sometimes I remember just sitting there thinking, I'm fucked. I'm never going to be able to be anything. I put all these labels on myself. I'm never going to be able to be successful because I haven't got GCSEs, or, I'm never going to be able to get over this drug addiction because I haven't got the support I needed. Where, when you listen to other people who've been through so much more, you think, well, hang about. If he's done that, then why can't I? What's it? And I think that's why podcasts like this is so important, because even if there's one person listening today that's thinking, oh, maybe I can relate
That's
to that.
me,
a bit.
that
Yeah,
is.
that's
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
I need to make
Yeah.
that change, and that's what
Yeah.
it's about.
And a year's a long time. You know, like I've put people on like 1 year programs, not you know, not as in I've just said to them, right, look, they've come to me in rock bottom, and I've said, note the date. What's the date? Right, we're going to write the date down. This is what we're going to try and reach in this year. You know, we're going to get you off of your friend's sofa into a flat. We're going to get you in full-time employment. You know, we're going to get this, get that, get your relationship back with your parents. And 9 months down the line, they're done. They've done it, you know, and it's like, again, they're suicidal. Now 9 months on, their life's on track. And it's like, I think everyone, sometimes they do just need that little push or a little spark, or just to realise it can be done.
Can be done.
Yeah, it can be done.
It can be done. I mean, it's scary because a year sounds like such a long time, but if that's you changing your life forever.
Well, listen, when your little Facebook thing comes up and it goes a year ago today, you go,
yeah.
You know, it feels like about 3 weeks ago.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, it's not. It's not. That's the thing. So,
No.
no, listen, I've enjoyed. I've literally sat here like this, listening to you today. Like,
Didn't stop, did it?
Yeah, no. But listen, it was a great story.
I appreciate you having me on.
And
Brett,
there's bits of there that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
Which it's powerful. You know, you've overcome what at 15 years old you could have just gone, and that's it. There's no coming back. So,
Absolutely.
you know, you're sitting in there, you know, a cracking man, and I think you're going to help a lot of people.
I hope so.
You might even help me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I hope so, mate.
I'll come on your podcast in about 3 months' time. I'll be about 12 stone.
Love it.
Top man, mate.
Nice one. Thanks, Brett.
Top man.